Now, if you know anything about me at all, you know that I'm a Virgo. And I'm also...
That was good, yeah, whatever.
Welcome to New York's Highline. We're the Camera Project. I'm Jay.
I'm Josh.
And today we're reviewing the Fuji X100T, which is the third generation of the Fuji X100 series.
The X100T has an APS-C size sensor. It's an X-Trans sensor with 16.3 megapixels. It's got a fixed, non-removable 23mm lens with an f2 maximum aperture. That 23mm with the APS-C crop factor actually equates to around 35mm in 35mm film standards. It's kind of the perfect street camera. So tonight we're going to take it out and shoot some street photography here on the Highline.
So the Highline Park is about 1.5 miles long, and it extends from 34th Street all the way down to 14th Street on the west side of New York City. And it kind of follows the river down. It also follows the West Side Highway. It was actually built originally as an elevated rail line because there used to be, back in the, I think, early 1900s, train lines that ran right down 10th Avenue. And I don't know if it's urban legend or not, but they used to call 10th Avenue the Avenue of Death because so many people would be hit by trains. So they built this in order to get the trains up off the street. And from about 1960 to about 1996, I believe, it was just sort of left up here. There were court fights about landmarking it. People wanted to turn it into a park. Most people just wanted to tear it down and build buildings because this is a beautiful view over here. So it sat for decades. And while it was sitting up here, there was all this scrub growing on the tracks. So once they started to convert this into a park, they left portions of the track the way it used to be. They kind of honored the tradition of the Highline by leaving parts of it in its quote-unquote natural state, which is what you see over here with the old tracks plus the scrub. So the first thing you notice about this camera is how it looks. And this doesn't look like your traditional modern camera. This is a throwback to an earlier age, you know, retro, vintage, all these words come up all the time when you talk about this camera. I think it looks beautiful. I really think it's a gorgeous camera.
It's really nice.
And they didn't sacrifice function for the style of it. It's everything that they put on here is extraordinarily functional, even though it also is extraordinarily fashionable. This is the black version. It also comes in a silver version, which I think is also beautiful.
Speaking of the silver version, this isn't the silver version, but it's a classic rangefinder, the Canonet QL17, and you'll notice that it looks very much like the silver version of the X100T.
Right.
Now, if I compare the two of them, because they're both in the rangefinder style, you'll notice that the form factor is almost exactly the same on these two.
So remarkable, really.
Yeah, the size and width, the depth of them. The only real difference is, of course, the size of the lens. This is a 40mm, so it does stick out a little bit further. And of course, the back, there's a screen on the digital one and film on this one. The other thing about this camera is you'll notice it has rings and dials for almost all of its settings. So on the front here, we have an f2 to f16 aperture ring, and then you can set it to auto mode right after f16. There's also a shutter speed dial here, which goes all the way from bulb to 1/4000th of a second, and you can also set that to auto as well.
And both of them are solid. They click in really nicely.
Yeah,
I mean, it's very satisfying.
The aperture ring has third of a stop increments. So while the numbers are listed in full stop increments, there's actually 3 clicks between each stop. And the shutter speed is actually full stop increments, but you can go third of a stop increments with the dial on the back of the camera. And of course, there's the exposure compensation dial there as well.
So the cool thing about this camera is, similar to this one, is that it's a really nice size for me. I really appreciate, especially when I'm going to be walking around on the street, if I'm going to be taking this on vacation or something like that. This is really a nearly perfect size. The one minor complaint I'd have, I suppose, is that the grip feels a little bit small. I mean, I know why they did it. It's because otherwise it would be It wouldn't look very nice. But what they do offer is a case for this, which slides onto the bottom and clips onto the top. Sort of reminds me of my dad's old camera back in the day. It's really well thought out. There's a hole here for where you can choose the focus mode, and you can also open the battery,
Really smart.
an SD card, without having to take it off. So if you have this on, it actually makes the hand grip a little bit bigger, makes the whole thing a little bit more comfortable. It also comes with a top piece, which snaps onto the bottom. Now the nice thing about this, it's been a little bit rainy here in the Northeast the last couple of days. So when we were out taking this shooting, you know, it's not a weather sealed body, so you know, you gotta be a little bit careful. You don't want it to get too wet. So what you can do is snap this onto the bottom, put this over the top. There's a magnet on the bottom. Now you've got a nice little package where if you want to take a picture, you can just flip it up and you're ready to go.
And you look like a badass. One of the cool things I really like about the Highline is it's not just a park for tourists. Of course, it is a tourist destination because it's beautiful, but it's a place that New Yorkers actually go. It's kind of weaved throughout the city, and it's all the way west in the city. So unlike Central Park, which of course locals go to as well, but it's got this huge tourist feel to it, the Highline kind of has everyone. It has New Yorkers, it has tourists, and it's a place that people go to relax, they'll go on their lunch break, and they'll go to hang out. It's also a great photography spot, which brings me back to the camera. Now, this camera is called a hybrid rangefinder, and the reason it's called a hybrid is because, like classic rangefinders, you can actually be looking directly through the glass, not through the lens. You actually can see the lens in the bottom right corner of the screen. But it also has the option of having an EVF. So if you hit this knob right here, it'll switch right back to an EVF, and you could actually see the screen pop up right in here as the electronic viewfinder folds into the screen. And it's really cool because you can go from this old school rangefinder style to a fully electronic experience. Now, for me, not having grown up with a rangefinder, I like the EVF because I can see exactly what my image is going to look like. I can see my full depth of field, and I can see everything kind of about what my final scene is going to be and all my settings. But with the rangefinder, if you do prefer that style, you actually get this cool overlay of all the settings. You get an overlay showing you what your frame size is going to be. You can see your shutter speed, aperture, and of course the actual meter showing you your exposure. There's also another mode, which is this hybrid mode, which you're in rangefinder view, but you actually can see a little EVF in the bottom right corner. Now it's cool in theory, and I guess it's kind of nice for manual focusing. I couldn't see myself using it, but I guess if you're a big rangefinder fan, it kind of could be the best of both worlds. Just not really my thing.